Okay, Joe, I'll roll us in since you just joined us. You are watching the Trailer Park Show. We are without our founder, uh, James Ritter, Pokey Ritter for most of you. He died this spring, and so it's been a very difficult transition. But we want to keep this thing going for a little while, and we of course are trying to keep up the traditions of the Trailer Park Show. Joe Martinez is our co-host. He was a candidate for sheriff a couple of times, I think,
Correct.
and we're just thrilled tonight to have Jamie with Dash as a guest. Um, Homelessness is not the only thing that Jamie can talk about, but
Yeah.
it's been a big thing on his plate this spring, this summer rather, and it's been something that's been a real focus of this show for many years. Um, we had the Challenger newspaper people on 3 or 4 times, um, Val Romness, and we've had just a number of shows where we've discussed the problem of homelessness in Austin. It's a problem for everyone who lives in Austin. Obviously, it's a bigger problem for the people who are homeless themselves. Um, but we're very pleased to have you with us, Jamie.
Thanks for
Why don't
having me. I appreciate it.
you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, and I think I mentioned in messages to you. I think there's two big stories to talk about tonight before we ever talk about the fire that broke out, and it's two sides of the same coin. One is the story of homelessness in Austin and what we can tell by looking at actual data as opposed
Yeah.
to everybody waving their arms around and saying it's a big problem. No, it's not. Yes, it is. I think your emphasis is to look at facts, and that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And then
Yeah.
the other side of the coin, before I let you say anything, um, is that there's a story to tell about how this has come into your daily life and the direction that it's sending you in because
Yeah.
as I say, there were lots of people talking about homelessness in Austin, but very few of them were looking at a map and looking at a map where you could say, well, here's where it is on the map. Let's go look and see if it's there. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it is there. And so, you can look at the data and the graphic evidence was just too much for anyone to do a hand wave and say, yeah, we're working on it and try to make the issue go away. So now I will turn over the show to you, Jamie. Tell us how all this fell into your lap and what's it been like being the star of all media in the United States of America.
Well, I like I said, I appreciate you having me on. I know we tried this last week, and we're having a little bit of issues there. But so my name is Jamie. I own and operate Dash. I guess you could say I'm the editor at Dash. We have been doing this now full time for about the last year, maybe a little under a year. So we haven't been going very long. So basically, this is how it got started. It was kind of all by an accident. Um, I'm an engineer by trade. That's what I do. And I was out and about in Austin. Was out on actually on Stone Lake and Breaker. That's where I was at, and I saw some kids coming out of this homeless camp. You could see the homeless camp from the road. Well, you could see a bit of it from the road. And there's about 4 or 5 kids. They were walking out onto the sidewalk, and was just driving along and thinking, this is kind of an odd place for kiddos to be spending time. So a few hours later, I went back through there. It was just kind of stuck in my head. And I went back through there and happened to stop, and I walked actually into the camp, and it was an abandoned camp. There was nobody there, and those kids had been in there, messing around as kids do. They were probably 10 years old or so. They weren't too young, but they definitely shouldn't have been in a homeless camp. There was liquor bottles, there was needles. I mean, you can imagine just your normal stuff that's in a homeless camp. And I got out the old trusty phone there with the camera and started taking video and excuse me, popped that onto Twitter. Back then, I had a pretty small account, and literally overnight, that video just blew up. And it got me to thinking. I was talking to people, Cleo and Matt from Save Austin Now, and some other folks around Austin that I had no clue who they were at this point. We got to talking about what the rest of Austin looked like. And again, I was just your average everyday Austinite going about my business, just living life, And so I started in my spare time hiking around the green belts and the parks, and man, just seeing these camps everywhere. And when you actually see what's out there compared to what you're being told that's out there or how bad the problem is, it's shocking. So I started putting videos out on this. One thing led to another, and ended up actually starting a whole series on this, and then we kind of moved into the public safety realm, and one thing led to another, and here we are full time. I have a team of folks with me. I have one full-time guy and a couple of volunteers that help us out, and we basically covering public safety, covering homelessness, anything that affects the public, mostly. It's really picked up in the last 6 months. As you know, Mackenzie Kelly, gotten to know her quite well here lately, and she's a wonderful councilwoman. It's a shame that we can't have more Mackenzie Kellys on the council, but there's always a chance in the future. But anyway, talking to some of the folks in the city, now that I don't want to sound egotistical, but now that we are the size that we're at and we have the following that we have, and we can get the eyes on things that we can get, I have contacts in the homeless strategy office now, and we're kind of working close with those people. They'll ask me, hey, have you been in this camp? Kind of what does it look like? And just kind of sharing information back and forth. I made a map, put it online. We actually have it offline right now. We're actually redoing the map and making it a little more easier for us to update. We kind of prided ourselves on making sure that any information we were putting out was up to date. It was accurate information. We were thinking in the beginning, how can we keep from getting in trouble with this information? And talking with people, the way to keep the public's trust is to make sure that the information is accurate. And we have 168 camps that I've mapped in the last year. And you can imagine how hard it would be to keep those up to date every week. It would be impossible, basically. So I have a guy that works with me. He does, I can't say his name because the company he works for probably wouldn't like it too much, but he works for a satellite company and has access to, satellite feeds. And he helps me with real-time information on if camps are growing, where they're popping up. It's a little bit easier to do that in the wintertime when the foliage is a little thinner, but, we're still able to get some good information. And a lot of my mapping now, he can tell me, hey, there's something popping up at this location, and send me the coordinates, and I can go out there and check it out. So, yeah, we had a video that just went completely viral within the last month. That was our Violet Crown video. I put that up, and literally within an hour, it's so funny that we spend all of our time and energy trying to make these 20-minute videos for YouTube, trying to hit that algorithm, so to speak, and struggle to get views and struggle. And then a 30-second video clip is the one that blows up and goes viral. It just blows my mind how that happens. So that video is, what's that?
I want to say that it's really it's touching. It's moving to read a couple of your posts where you said, look, I'm a guy who's been creating content for a long time, and as you just said, you put it out there and nobody's watching, and then something happens one day.
It just clicks.
It's the whole concept of going viral. It went viral. Now, let me back up. When was that first time that you saw those kids? Was that a year ago? Was that last winter? When was that?
Actually, that was in it was about this time last year. So it was about July going into August. Yeah, so it was about a year ago. It was about
So,
this time last year.
so you've really been on the beat, if you will, for a year. And Dash, does that stand for documenting ATX or what?
It's documenting Austin streets and homeless.
Streets and homeless.
So it's funny because we had the original. Hold on just a second here. Let me make sure I'm getting some feedback. But the original name, I love to poke fun at Adler back when he was in office, and I had this, like I said, just a regular Twitter account, and I named it "Make Austin Safe Again," just to kind of poke fun at him, being one of these Trump support. And when this stuff started going viral about Christmas, we started getting bigger, and we were losing a lot of attention from the press because of that name. And so I was working with Cleo over at Save Austin Now, and she actually is the one that came up with that name. The documenting Austin streets and homelessness. So, yeah, you can thank. I have to thank Cleo for that one.
Well, and we've had Cleo on the show many
Yeah.
times. She is a great friend.
She is.
And speaking of Cleo, it gives me another chance to say some words, which I guess I'm just addicted to. But I want to point out that I was executive director of the Republican Party of Travis County
Okay.
in 2017 and 2018. Worked directly for Matt Makoviak after
Yep.
James Dickey became state chair. I later went to Bexar County and was the executive director there. I've managed campaigns. I'm a Republican. My bio on Quora says Gary Teal, Republican, and I absolutely confess that I come to a lot of issues with a pure heart, if you will. I
Right.
care about homeless people. I care when people sneak across the border and end up living terrible lives. That bothers me. I am not a heartless conservative, but I am partisan. And Mackenzie was at our Republican meetings when she announced that she was going to run, and she had ties with other Republicans, including Don Zimmerman, who was on the council for a term. So,
Right.
so anyway, I know that it's probably 85% of the people you talk to about this come at it with a political axe to grind, and it sounds like you really don't. It sounds like you're not out to prove that this is the Democrats' fault and that the Republicans can fix it, and you're not out to prove that this is capitalism that's caused this, and all we need to do is declare a socialist state and everything will be okay. This is not your orientation toward this, is it?
No, I thought, I've never been a huge political person in the first place. And sadly, with this issue, it's so politicized now that you can't help but be a little bit political. But we thought in the very beginning, it was my opinion that in order to really try to get to the bottom of some of these issues and come up with solutions, we needed to be able to work with the left and the right both. This was an issue that we should be able to all come together on. So I kind of made it a point to stay politically neutral. So if you look at any of my stuff publicly that I do, I pretty much stay out of politics. I try to keep any political speak out of it. And that's really helped because if you look at the viewers and the followers that I have, it's a mix from left, right, center. I mean, we get them all. And so, I kind of like that. Here recently, I just started, as we kind of, I'm kind of moving into doing other types of shows and other types of content, as any, I guess, creator would, you kind of start spreading your wings a little bit. But in the beginning, I knew that this was going to happen where if the content started taking off, I wanted to be able to have a place that I could create content that was not homelessness or public safety related, but I didn't want it to hurt Dash. So I created Dash Media. So I have two actual Dash Media. USA and Dash Media ATX that I kind of do the other kind of, I like to make true crime kind of, shows talking about like the Servant Girl Annihilator, the Yogurt Shop murders and things like that. But yeah, politically, we stay, sorry about that. I got way off topic, but politically we stay pretty much neutral. Obviously the affiliations that I have are mostly right leaning, like Save Austin Now. I mean, it's just I guess it's just the nature of what we're doing. Those kind of those folks, Matt and Cleo have been some of the biggest backers that I have. Honestly, Matt and Cleo both kind of helped me navigate this whole situation, the political situation, because as you know, any politicized issue, there's a lot of pitfalls that you could fall into if you're not careful. So they've kind of helped me kind of navigate that and kind of keep my feet clean, so to speak. It's been interesting. It's been really interesting. I don't know. I don't know if this, if we're going to be able to stay politically neutral, for too long. Elections are coming up, and I found with the last round of elections, I was so new at this. Boy, all the politicians came at me and, wanted me to take them out to camps and wanted me to, make videos with them. And so I don't know if I'm going to do that this next election cycle. I don't know if I'm going to get too far off into the politics of it, taking politicians around to do this and that. But I guess we'll have to see. I mean, if these folks truly want to help, these folks on the street. And see, I kind of have a special place with the homeless folks because, I was homeless in this city, almost 15 years ago, so I know what it's like for these people. I remember one night I was down at the bus stop at the HEB on William Cannon and 35. I was standing down there at midnight waiting for a bus, and it was raining. And I'm going to tell you, I've never felt as alone in my life as I felt that night. I have no family in Austin. And, standing under that bus stop at midnight when it's raining and it's cold, I'm telling you, I will never forget that feeling in my life. It's the most alone I've ever felt, ever. And so I know these folks that are living on the street. I know what it's like to sleep on the concrete and have people walk by you and look at you like you're a piece of dirt. So, I kind of have a special place, for these folks, the folks that want to help themselves. Some of these folks that really want to help themselves, all they really need is somebody to reach a hand down. And sometimes that can save a person's life.
Right,
so,
right.
It's interesting.
Jamie, may I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
When did you notice the explosion of the homelessness here in Austin? How far back can you go in the state?
I don't have a very popular opinion on this, but when the camping ban was taken away and pretty much people were able to sleep anywhere, that's when it really came front and center for me. I noticed just how many people were sleeping on the streets. I mean, it was everywhere you looked. And, that's when I really started looking into this issue to see exactly how many people there were. And there's really only one source that you can go to find official numbers, and that is Echo and their point in time count. Now that I've been doing this a while, and we just had that point in time count earlier this year, I've learned just how flawed Echo system is when it comes to counting, and that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, it was about the time that just like most people, I think here in Austin, is about the time that the camping ban was repealed. I think it came front and center for most everybody then, with driving down the street or walking down the sidewalk and, you can't get by because there's human feces or there's somebody laying in the street half naked. It was shocking, very shocking.
Do you think that this is basically a poverty thing, or is it a mental health issue or a drug issue?
So the narrative is it is a housing issue, an affordability issue, but I'm here to tell you that's not the case.
No.
It's a mixture of drugs, alcohol, and a little mental health. Mainly it's drugs and alcohol. I'm out working with these people every day and I'm talking to them. And once you earn their trust, they will tell you exactly what's on their mind. They will tell you exactly why they are on the street. And the most of these folks are on the street because of drugs and alcohol. They are where they want to be. Most of them are where they want to be. And you know, I'll give you an example. When the Violet Crown, when they cleared that encampment out, they took 85 people from that encampment and put them into housing or to the bridge shelters. We went back to that camp within 48 hours of them moving the folks to the bridge shelter, and there was already 20 to 30 people that had left the shelter and was already back into that camp, staying there where they could drink, where they could do their drugs. It's a shame. And at the time that they were staying back in the camp, somebody was still paying for that hotel room that they were supposed to be in, but they weren't. They were back in the camp. So yeah, it's a big problem. The drugs and alcohol, it's a huge issue right now in the city with the homeless population. In that one camp, I interviewed a guy that he just himself, this one guy that I interviewed, had revived 12 people with Narcan that had died from fentanyl overdose. And, he Narcaned them and brought them back. That's pretty shocking. That's pretty shocking.
Well, I really don't want to say that I'm going to quote Alan Graham because I didn't write down notes when I was listening to him, and I certainly didn't record it. So I'm going to paraphrase what I understood. And if Mr. Graham or anyone else wants to correct us, we will acknowledge our error. But the thing that he said that was really really very, very sobering was that he was making a presentation to a large group, and he was talking about the money that's been spent and the successes that they've had at the Community First organization in connection with mobile loaves and fishes. And someone said, "Well, you must have taken hundreds of people who were drug addicts and cured them." And just sort of looked at the audience and he said, "No, it's just not like that. You cannot bring someone in who's 55 years old and a drug addict and go through 2 counseling sessions and have the idea that they're going to become Java programmers and make $100,000 a year. They're not kids, and they have gotten habits. Now, as a Republican, as a conservative Republican, I can't say these people are homeless by choice because people will jump all over me. And obviously, there are many people who are homeless who would give the world to be able to sleep in an air-conditioned bed tonight, and who really have the desire and they deserve and need help. But it wasn't that long ago. You were talking about some old British history. I sometimes look at history from my father's lifetime, and I know that during World War II in Washington, D.C., the workers used to, on a hot night, they'd take a sheet and go down on the banks of the Potomac and just sleep on the riverbank. And so it's not, and maybe even more ironic than that, next week, I am going to take my REI equipment and my fortunate, life that I have, and I'm going to go camping, and I'm going to walk 30 or 40 miles. I'm going to sleep on the ground. And so, it can be that living outdoors, it'll be hotter where I'm going to be at the bottom of the Grand Canyon than it is in Austin right now.
Yeah, for sure.
However, again, I've got choices. If I get injured, I will get out of the canyon and I'll come home. If I get tired of it, I made this decision to go there, and I understand the huge difference. But I also understand that it's possible that somebody may get rescued, put into an institution, and then as soon as they can get back out into the woods, they do it.
Yeah.
But Gary, here again, the key word that you used was a choice. I have a choice. I have a choice to go down to the bottom of the canyon and sweat to death. That's my choice. I have
Yep.
a choice to stay up on top where it's nice and cool, where the wind blows, and that's a choice that I make. But where do you cut the line? Where do you cut the cord here with the homeless folks? It's not that they don't have not that they don't have a choice. They have a choice either to find work, find somewhere to go, or become a burden on society. And this is basically what we're looking at. We're looking at drug abuse. We're looking at
Yes.
alcoholism. And we're looking at people that have been displaced from their work, their job, because of the fact of poor planning, planning that didn't plan for the future. They didn't plan for to be laid off from work. They just laid off 100,000 people from yellow transport, or 30,000. And where are these people going to go work? They don't have a job tomorrow. They're all out of work. They're broke. So
Well,
are the 30,000 going to become homeless? I don't think so.
I will say, Joe, that my experience personally and with my family is that mental illness and addiction uh, have to be considered as health issues. We know that there are fabulously wealthy people who can't function because they are addicted to one thing or another. And if they've got a lot of money, they probably have handlers and family that look after them, and people who keep them out of trouble and out of jail and keep them alive. But when you think of someone like Michael Jackson or Prince dying of a drug overdose, it wasn't because they were desperate and they were left out in the woods. So these addictions can be overpowering no matter what you want to do. I imagine there are some people who you could take out for a cup of coffee. They would say, I know I need to straighten out my life. I want to straighten out my life. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go and get a shave and get a clean shirt, and I'm going to go get a job. And then 4 or 5 hours later, they're out of their minds under the influence of one thing or another.
Yeah, the drugs. So thankfully, right now in Austin, fentanyl hasn't taken over quite like it has in San Francisco. But that right now, methamphetamines is a huge problem in the homeless community in Austin. Last week, we had upwards of 7 men that died in Austin in these homeless camps. So I talked to a lot of them, a lot of these men. Apparently, what ended up happening was there was a very bad batch of dope that came in. It was methamphetamines, but it was kind of cut or spiked with fentanyl. And when you mix, methamphetamines, fentanyl, and this heat together, it's a bad thing. So it just kind of goes to show you what these men and what these women will choose. They will choose to keep doing these drugs and staying on the street when shelter is offered to them. I go back to that, the Violet Crown, where 85 men were taken and they were put into shelter. I could almost guarantee you, if we had access to those numbers right now, it would shock you with the number of men that stayed in shelter. I guarantee you it's no more than 20 of them. And a lot of that has to do, I don't know if you men know much about people that's in recovery, but I've learned a great deal about this in the last year. Apparently, when you decide, if you're an addict and you decide now is the time that I want to get clean, I'm ready, I'm done, I'm ready to put it down. Apparently, there's a very short period of time to actually start the process and get it done. If you get past that period and it's kind of given up again. But it kills me because right now we can take this, there's so much money flowing into the homeless community from the government, the federal government, local government, state government, but they are not offering much in the way of services to these people. So when they put them into shelter, let's say you're addicted to fentanyl, you're put into shelter. If you don't have access to some type of services, you're going to go into withdrawal, and I guarantee you're going to be back out in the street within 24 hours just to keep from being sick. And a lot of these folks, they are on some substance or another. Now, I'm not going to point fingers at anybody when it comes to substance abuse, but if we want to be successful in treating this and getting as many people off the street and remedying this problem, then at a certain point we're going to have to come to and face the fact that there needs to be more services offered to these men and women. It has to be. And until then, this is not, it's never going to be successful. And I go back to Adler saying at one point last year that, Austin's going to end homelessness by 2023 or 2024. And he was dead serious when he said that. And it just blows my mind that that man could say that. Every interview that I did after he said those words, we started off the interview with them asking me to respond to that. And how do you respond to such an idiotic statement other than just basically laughing? It kills me.
Well, I heard Mayor Adler say, and I don't remember the numbers, but in terms of the huge budget for Austin Health, there was a tiny number of people, homeless people, who were soaking up an enormous share of that budget. And again, I don't even want to guess at what those numbers were, but it was a really classic case of the 80-20 rule, only it was probably more like the 95-5 rule. And he didn't have a solution for it. These are certainly complex problems, but I'm gonna sort of get on the same track that Joe was on and ask, where is this money going? It seems like there is an awful lot of money. I don't hear you saying we're spending X million dollars and we need to triple that or quadruple it. I know it's getting into politics, but I really wouldn't mind hearing you comment on how it was that I've seen some posts that you've made. You said, look, here's a photograph of this cleaned up area. The city's done a wonderful job. Now, I probably wouldn't have posted that. I would have said something nasty like, finally, when I rubbed their nose in it, the government did what they were supposed to be doing all along. So I know you're not saying that, and I know that you as does Councilwoman Kelly, have a role in the community where it doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good to sit around and just throw rocks at people. But really, you had a different set of responsibilities. You weren't getting paid a six-figure salary to come to work every morning and research all of this stuff, but you found it out, you documented it, and now they're finally taking action. What have they been doing? What have they been doing?
Yeah, and along those lines. Oh, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Just spending money, millions and millions of dollars. That's just like adding more fuel to the fire. You have got nothing done. Absolutely.
Homeless industrial complex.
The fact of the matter is, when Adler was as a mayor, you had nothing done. You had millions of dollars coming in from the Fed, and people say, well, this is from the government money. It's your tax dollars at work. They're going down a rat hole where nothing is being done. And he should never have been mayor of the city of Austin. He was a disaster to the city. What they need to do is do an audit on everybody that supplied a service to the homeless people here in Austin and find out where the money went, because I damn sure tell you it didn't go to that homeless person. Because
I can almost guarantee you that if they did an audit, which I really don't think they ever will, that it would shock it. There would probably be charges brought up, I would imagine. I mean, we're probably into that territory. We call it the homeless industrial complex for a reason. And let me give you an example. Down in South Austin, down on 290 and Pack Saddle, I think y'all may remember the story not too long ago where that salon owner had so many issues. It went to the news, and then all of a sudden that camp was cleaned out, right? This is right in between, basically in between the Randalls and the Target down there. So here's the thing. Forever, for as long as I'd been doing this, every single week, the city would go in. The homeless people would move across the street. The city would go in and clean it. And then the homeless people would move right back in. Literally, when the last truck rolled out of there, they're moving back in. That's not the only place that this happens. This happens all over the city of Austin. Every time that they go in, literally every camp, almost every camp, I can think right now at the top of my head 3 camps, but literally almost every camp that the Hill Initiative has went in and cleaned and shut down is already reoccupied, and it's usually reoccupied within about 2 weeks. And we're talking millions of dollars that's being spent cleaning these camps. For what reason? Why are we doing this? Why,
Well,
you know,
it's housekeeping. It's the maid service, and they come and they clean it up so they can keep living there.
and then you get people. So there's a shooting range out on 35 down in South Austin called the Range. It's a great little area down there. There is a tract of land just south of the range. It's got the big electric lines running through that piece of property. The man that owns that piece of property, I at the end or beginning of this year, I can't exactly remember when it was, but I went in there. There used to be a humongous homeless camp on his land, private property. So the city can't necessarily just go in there and clean it themselves. It's private property. We documented it, filmed it, talked to some of the people that was living there. I actually took Fox 7 onto that property. The very first TV interview I did was on that piece of property. We went back there a few months later, and when I pulled up into the little access road there, the man that owns it was so mad that I was pulling up in there. He thought I was from the city, or he thought I was somebody there trying to give the homeless people help. What ended up happening, he ended up calling the police several times, trying to get the police to come in and trespass the 50 to 60 homeless people that were living on his land. They refused to do it. They would not trespass them. They told him he basically had to go through like an eviction process. I kid you not. So, but during the time that he was dealing with this, trying to get these people off of his land, the city and the hosts, I think it's called the street outreach team. I forget what their name is now, but they were bringing clothes and food, and every NGO and organization in Austin was bringing all manner of junk to them. And you know how these homeless camps grow. They grow and grow and grow. It's like a rat's nest. His whole piece of property was covered in junk. He has 90 shopping carts from Target, Walmart, you name it. He finally gets the homeless people off of his land. Now he's stuck with all of this junk. The city then comes out there and starts issuing him code violation tickets because of all this junk that's on his land.
That's really
Crazy.
amazing. That
It
is
ended up
amazing.
the day that I went back to his property and he was there and he was so mad at me. They had 18 wheelers, 2 of them in there with tractors. It cost him $17,000 to clean that property. And while we were there, and I have this on video, it's a great video. While we were there, the city, the host, the outreach team pulls up onto his property wanting to know where the homeless people went. And I'm going to tell you right now, that man went so batshit mad at that point. He was so upset with him for being there. They cost him $17,000 in about a half a year of his time. Now, here's the funny part is he has 90 shopping carts on his property. He calls the stores and says, "Hey, I've got your carts. Come get them." They don't want them. They want nothing to do with them. He tries to take them to a scrapyard. They can't take them because they're branded, and that would be stealing. So they're still sitting on his property right now. You drive down there and look off the side of the road onto that piece of property, you're going to see a ton of shopping carts because he has absolutely nothing that he can do with them.
You know what they need to do? Take the signs off of those things and crush them and sell them to the junkyard.
Yeah, I think he tried to do that on some of them, but still there were some issues at the scrapyard because they knew that it did belong to a store and he wasn't associated. There's a story behind it, and I really feel for the guy because the city created the problem and then tried to fine him because of the problem that they created. How in the world?
Take those shopping carts and put them up on Interstate 35, and I guarantee somebody come pick them up.
Now,
Probably more homeless people.
Jamie, I can understand how a young person or someone who's not ever visited one of these camps, I can understand why they might be confused, and
Yeah.
they might say, I want to help, and I'm going to take a whole bunch of bags of Fritos down there, and I'm going to
Yeah.
drop by REI. I'm going to buy a $400 tent, and I'm going to take. In fact, I'm going to buy 3 of them because I'm
Yeah.
doing real well. And I'm going to drop off a bunch of tents, and they really are enabling a terrible, terrible life. They're helping people stay in a place with no plumbing and no electricity, and so they're misguided, but they are trying to help
Yeah.
in their own way. Did you tell me that some of the people who are behaving this way are on the payroll, the taxpayers' payroll, and work
Yeah.
for the city of Austin?
Yeah, it's the street out. I think they're called the host, the something street outreach team. I can't remember the acronym. I'll get it back to you. But yeah, they were bringing this stuff, clothes and food, and they drive around. It's one city of Austin, just a normal city of Austin employee, and then a police officer, and and this happens all over the city. This is not, just one story. This happens all over the place. It happened up on Pecan Park. Not long after that, it happened again up there, but on a much smaller scale. And back to the money being spent. You know, I've got a document. I can't remember the numbers right off the top of my head, but a guy had sent me a document. It's an internal City of Austin document about the amount of money that they have allocated to this, and to the different areas in the homelessness sphere, so to speak, and how much money that they have on hand, where the money's coming from. Did it come from federal government? Did it come from donations? How did the money come in? I would love to send that to you so you could read that. It's very interesting, and it'll give you a very good idea of the amount of money that is being spent per year on this issue. And when you see it, I'm telling you right now, it's going to blow your mind. It's actually, I did publish a few pages out of it onto my Twitter, and it kind of caused a little bit of an uproar back then. But we call it the homeless.
We will post it as a comment on our Facebook feed. Some of our viewers may be on Channel 10, but we are also online on Facebook. The Trailer Park Show is a page on Facebook, and each of our shows are streamed on Facebook, and you can go back and look at old shows. But you'll be able to look as soon as you can get that to us, Jamie. We'll put it
here while we're talking. I'm going to go ahead and send it to you.
All right,
Jamie, this homeless thing has become
it's a big problem.
Big business and lots of free money because it's tax-free money coming to the city of Austin, and it's being doled out to these quote suppliers of supplies to the homeless people. You've got tents, you've got cell phones, you've got portable potties, you've got food, you've got all of these things. Somebody's providing the service and it's not for free. They need
and
it's such a 2 words: tough love. By God, you need to cut them off, and the only way you're going to cut them off is stop the service
and
stop it. This guy
enforcing Prop B.
This guy that spent $17,000 ought to sue the city of Austin and anybody else affiliated with the city of Austin because they prevented him from getting these people out of there. That's his private property. We have a right to have free movement of our property. Nobody can come onto your property and set up a tent.
Hey, Gary. I'm sorry, I know it's right in the middle of the show, but when you get a chance, can you message me your email, and Joe, if you want it as well, I'll
Sure.
send you this. I've got it pulled up here, but
my email,
thing is,
Jamie, is my name. My email is gary.teal@gmail.com.
gary.till@gmail.com. Okay, so what I wanted to say something. You were talking about the young people and wanting to help, and taking some food. Here's the thing, and I'm told this over and over when I talk to people that's in the homeless community. They do not want your food. You see people panhandling on the corner, and people are driving up and handing them food. And I'm telling you right now, that food just hits the ground. The minute they drive off, the food hits the ground, and then the rats come and get it. They don't want your food. They want your money because they need to, they want to go buying drugs and alcohol. It's a shame. And I take a lot of heat from saying this from people, but drugs and alcohol is a much bigger problem in the homeless community than what the city of Austin or any of these anybody that is in charge of helping these people. It's so much of a bigger issue than anybody is talking about.
Well,
You know,
and it's an issue obviously outside the homeless community. There are
very
so
much
many
so.
families who have a child, teenager, or someone in their 20s or 30s who is unable to care for themselves because of these kinds of problems. And so it is sort of insoluble in some ways. I know I wouldn't promise to end homelessness if I became mayor.
That was such a
Because you're not gonna do it. But I'm just shocked that professionals follow this bad strategy, because I can understand it if it's a church group of nice little old ladies and they just want to try to help somebody make it through the night. I can understand being misguided, but in terms of a policy of enabling homelessness, a policy of supporting homelessness, of promoting homelessness and enabling homelessness, it's just cruel. It's analogous to the immigration problem, where we have people saying, "Oh yeah, come on, sneak across the border. We love you. We'll give you a bus ticket." And when you get there, you can't start a company. You can't get a work permit because you're illegal now. And so they're bringing people into a horrible life, and they're not changing the law. They're not really providing programs or a path to prosperity. They're setting innocent people up for and Joe, I know I say innocent people. Obviously, if I had been shooting up under a bridge for the last 10 years, you probably wouldn't say I'm innocent. I mean, at some point I made the choice the first time. So all of these people, you would hope that they have free will, but I know that a lot of them don't have the necessary self-control. They can no longer, they are slaves to these problems.
Yeah, and a lot of them, and again, I'm not just talking out of my tail end here. We work with these folks all the time. We work with them daily. A lot of these folks are where they want to be. So I'm asked this question all the time because I'm always pushing enforcing Prop B and the camping ban, and I'm asked this question a lot, and I really don't have a good answer to it. Which is, they say these men that are where they want to be, these women that are where they want to be, they won't accept the help even if it's offered. What do you do with these folks? You can't just throw them in jail forever because they don't want to live in a home. So what do you do with the people that do not want help? They will not accept help, yet they just want to live on the street. They want to live in your backyard, and they want to live and junk it up and put our green belts in danger. What do you guys think? What do you do with that, with a person that's that way?
Well,
That they won't accept help.
We had vagrancy laws, and people were
We did.
arrested for being vagrants, and that by today's rules seems cruel in some way. But man, if you get somebody inside an institution, you can talk about prison reform, and I'm sure that there are drugs available in prison. But
Oh yeah.
there may be in the future. Not going to be me that makes it happen, but somebody is going to try to go back to a regime where if someone is ruining their own life and all the people around them, you put them in custody involuntarily. Have them go before a judge. You're not talking about a rogue police state, just a whole bunch of Joe Martinez is driving up in their squad cars and throwing these guys in a cage. You're talking about going
Gary,
before court.
I have just a solution for this thing. Everybody that's homeless has a parent, a sibling, a mother, a father, an uncle, an aunt. Let's reconnect them to that family.
Yeah.
What in the world happened? How come you're homeless now? Where did you come from? You come from Austin. You came
everybody
from Austin.
everybody that we come into contact with, almost everybody that we come into contact with, we always ask that question, about where they came from. And the main reason we do that is because the narrative is, most of the people that are homeless here in Austin are from Austin, and that's a whole other story, but it's not true. And we ask that question: do you have family? What happened, or why aren't you there? Most of them, again, it goes back to drugs and alcohol, where they burned their bridges, they stole from mom, they, whatever, to keep getting their drugs, until finally mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever had enough of it and cut them off and said, hit the door. And, it's just
What's
a
wrong?
shame.
What's wrong with the city of Austin doing that, being the mom and being the dad and cutting them off?
Can't do it.
We cannot spin these people into a good life.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. Taxpayers are going to get tired of this stuff.
Yeah.
As a taxpayer, I'm tired of it. Millions and millions. If we only had an audit, that's the big word that I use every time we come on the show. If we only had an audit to the city of Austin, let's do it. But nobody wants to talk about that. That's just like the cross of the vampire. They don't want to talk about this stuff.
No.
There's a reason for this stuff, and there's something hidden behind that. It's got to be done, either by some independent auditor audits the city of Austin, the homeless program.
Yeah.
I guarantee you people will go to prison for that.
Yeah, and it kind of goes. So there was something I wanted to bring up that's along those lines that happened today. For since Dash has been Dash and we have been doing this, we have been warning people about the dangers of fire in these homeless camps. Our wonderful councilman Zoe, we call him Propane Zoe, and we call him Propane Zoe because some time ago he started handing out propane tanks and to the homeless community in these homeless camps, grills and propane tanks, and so I've been warning for a while about fires in these homeless camps. So there was an incident that happened earlier today that I was reporting on. There's a huge homeless camp over at Grove and Riverside. It's right off in the woods there. It's massive, anywhere between 50 and 80 people living there. And today, at some point this afternoon, one of the men that was living there, and I do know this guy, we ran into him last week when we were filming at Mabel Davis Park after one of the men that was in that camp died, took and started setting the woods on fire around Grove and Riverside. Started a massive fire. And if you know that area, there's a lot of big apartment complexes. Yeah. Then he made his way over to Mabel Davis Park and did the same thing and set fire to the woods over there. So I'm listening to the police and the fire scanner, and they end up, talking about giving his description but here, what I'm rambling here, but what I'm getting at is it is a huge problem. Right now, you have mental health issues, and then you have these camps where they're lighting fires to cook, lighting fires. I can't say to stay warm. Nobody needs to stay warm right now, but at some point, one of these camps is going to catch fire. It's getting drier outside. Somebody's going to end up getting hurt. The homeless folks themselves are going to get hurt or die, or they're going to burn down an apartment complex or a bunch of homes, and it's going to be a tragedy. And we've been warning for a long time that this is coming. It's not if, it's when. And if the city doesn't step up and do something about this, and I don't even know what they can do about it at this point because there's so many camps and so many people, but it's just a matter of time before something serious is going to happen.
Well, and you alluded earlier to the idea that you try so hard to keep all the data up to date.
Yeah.
I know that one of the things that happens in any political argument is if you have a 100-page document with 999 facts and somewhere in there you put the wrong date or something like that, people will jump on you and say, well, he's got it wrong. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. And so I'm sure that's happened, but I guess this is a case where this is a clear and present danger, as they say. This is 100%. Not a theoretical possibility anymore. And I think that was the genius of what you started, Jamie, is that you're not just yelling at other people and saying this is dangerous. You've got video. And this has now happened. It doesn't sound like 30 or 40 people burned to death. but it sounds like it could
Yeah.
happen next time. It could be 30 or 40 people, and it would not be the fault of any of us. We've paid our taxes, and we trust the city, the county, the state, and the federal government to have some kind of sensible solution. And sending people off with propane stoves in a dry forest is not the answer.
Good old and we're talking hundreds of these propane tanks and grills that he gave out. I don't know the exact number, and obviously he's not going to give me the time of day. But it's funny that we expect sensible solutions out of these folks, and what kills me is they're paying a whole team of people, and I mean a whole team. We're talking probably 10 to 15 people to find these camps, map them in the GIS system, and do an inventory. So they're paying a whole team of people to do what me and one guy does alone. And we probably have a better handle on what's actually going on out there because we are doing this constantly and constantly in these camps. And we don't only know where they're at and what is in the camps, but we make connections with the homeless people themselves. It's really the only way that we can stay safe doing what we're doing is to make these personal connections. But I think it's funny how the city spends money on these things. They could take one person and task him with doing this and save. There's no telling how much money they spend on keeping these homeless maps. And I'm going to tell you on a website, you can see where traffic's coming from. And when I had the austinhomelessmap.com online, there was a lot of city of Austin IP addresses visiting my map. And I know they could see, I know they knew that, that I could see that, but it happened constantly. Probably one of the biggest visitors was from the city of Austin.
Well, and that's a basic question that I wanted to ask during the show. We've got 2 minutes left, so we need to have you on again soon.
Yeah.
But the question is, when people saw these maps, I want to know, did the professional homeless managers say to themselves, "Oh crap, he's published a map of what we already knew was true"? Or alternatively, did they say, "Holy smokes, I had no idea there were this many of these places"?
They use that material that he does for their own benefit.
Well, here's what's funny, and I'll wrap this up real quick, but I was in talks with the city to do that for them, to do that for the GIS, for the actual, so they were going to use COVID money to hire me and, get me a team to do this. And then I published a story about the guy in South Austin that the city was throwing under the bus, and he had to spend $17,000. And then literally 3 days later, I got an email that I no longer met the requirements. Kid you not. That is a true story. That happened. Yeah, that happened. It's such a, if it was, it's so, you just got to laugh.
It's a racket, Jamie. It's a racket, man.
It is a wreck. But yeah, I would be more than happy to come back on whenever you want me.
Well, we there is a lot of ground to cover, obviously.
Yes, there is.
Joe was a patrol officer for many, many years. He's been
Thank you, sir.
A private investigator for many years after that. And so crime is another thing. I know I've seen maps made of where murders occurred. And you sort of pick up the map and you think, oh, I know where they occur. There's going to be a whole bunch of them in this little neighborhood. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found really disgusting was when Mayor Adler would go to San Francisco to find out how they handled their homeless problem, and then he'd go to Seattle and Minneapolis. I mean, that's just like a free airplane ride for him. There's no reason to go there. Look in your backyard. Look in your own backyard, mister, before you go anywhere.
Just like going overseas to figure out how the bike lanes work. I forget where they went over there to figure that out.
Those French bike lanes and those Oktoberfest bike lanes, you got to go over there and do a study. There was a DC councilman who admitted during a campaign that he really liked to visit Europe because he got ideas about how to do things, and it wasn't finding solutions to problems that DC faced. It was finding solutions to problems that DC didn't even have.
Right, right. Same thing here. It kills me the way they spend money. It really does. I don't understand it. It's like the folks that they were trying to give the contracts to do the home. So real quickly, I've been working with the homeless strategy division to get a public cleanup where I have volunteers and we go in behind the hill initiative and do some cleanups. And every time we get close to getting it off the ground, something else happens and it derails it. And this last time it was they were going to give the contract to clean up these camps to a company that the business address went to this backwoods house in Bastrop. It was so crazy. Teddy Roosevelt on Twitter dug this up, and it was you just got to look into that. It's the craziest thing. And of course, once that came to light, our great councilwoman Mackenzie Kelly, jumped in on that. I think it got taken off the books. So
Jamie,
very interesting.
Jamie, it's called a shell company.
It's exactly what it was. You should see the street view.
All you got to do is follow the money. Don't worry about the company. We'll follow the money.
Oh man, that was a great one. And we're talking like 7.5 million for that one company. It was just a husband and wife team. They didn't even have employees. When they were asked where they were going to do with the hazardous waste, they said they were going to take it to the Williamson County landfill. Well, when you look on the Williamson County landfill's website, they don't take hazardous waste. They will not accept it.
We should let our viewers go, because I often joke that if we don't end the show, then our viewers are getting hungrier and hungrier, and they can't turn away from the screen until we stop talking. So we need to be more kind to them. But this was a great show, Jamie. Just a great show.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations on getting some well-deserved kudos for the work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing more of that kind of work. I'd like to help. I would really like to help. And this is a data-driven approach.
Very data-driven.
That should be very, very, very relevant in Austin, Texas. There should be a large community of people who see the value and the validity of doing that kind of research. And it's just nice. It's just nice to have facts in front of you.
If anybody wants to get involved and wants to know more, easiest way right now is to head over to my Twitter or X, whatever it's being called today. It's twitter.com/@documentingatx. And you can catch me there, send me a message, whatever you need to do. Find out exactly if you want to get involved, or if you want to help, or if you just want to chit chat, or you want to see my content, head on over there.
Documenting Austin, Texas. And so anything else, any short list of other projects that you think that you might expand into over the next year?
No, not at the moment. I mean, we've got so actually, yes, I'm working on a show for Peacock right now over the Lady Bird Lake, the deaths on Lady Bird Lake. So hopefully we're going to go into production with that in the next month. We've actually been working on getting this show off the ground for about a month and a half, 2 months now. So hopefully we're going to start filming on that within the next month or so. And I've got a couple of shows that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be announcing probably within the next few weeks. We're going to announce, but it's with some pretty well-known people, and I think folks are going to be happy with it. So I can't talk about it now, but stay tuned, and I think you're going to be surprised.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you to the audience who's watching. Thank you to the audience who's going to see this in a day or two or a week or 10 weeks. Or 30 years from now, somebody will be doing their PhD at UT, and they will study this program because it was one of the main turning points in solving homelessness in Austin, Texas, and starting a model that's being used elsewhere, I hope.
We are working on it for sure.
I've just got to wrap up by saying, we care. Joe and I both care about people suffering, and I know you do too, Jamie.
Absolutely.
We talk about rat's nests, or we talk about how if you feed stray cats, you just get more stray cats. And people who believe that they are on the right side and we're on the wrong side, they will say that we think that these homeless people are animals or something, and we don't.
No.
We're looking for a solution that is workable and a way to turn these lives back into a productive existence
Right.
that doesn't threaten the community. God, I didn't even get to talk about how when I was a kid, Austin, Texas was where all the hippies wanted to make sure that nobody even brushed their teeth in
Yeah.
the Edwards Aquifer. Everything was, let's protect the environment. And now this along this issue, we're just trashing the environment.
Absolutely.
Okay, good night, everyone. See you next week. I will be out for the next 2 weeks. I will be below the rim and will not even get a cell phone signal. So if anyone sends me a message, I'll get back to you in late August. Good night, everyone.